Begone the Raggedy Witches by Selena Corinne. The cold at the floor of Mup's feet told her that she was awake. The creatures standing around Ma'am made her wish she was asleep. Our dog should be protecting us, thought Mup. That's his job. But where was Badger now that she needed him? Where was he? Lying by the fridge with his chin on his paws, his brown eyes untroubled. A huge tear brimmed over and slid down Mup's cheek. It trembled beneath her chin for a moment and fell to the floor. "Ma'am," she whispered hoarsely. The 6 witches that stood around Ma'am looked up. One was the very tall witch who had stared down at Mup in the car. This witch put her hand on Ma'am's shoulder, as if she knew Ma'am, as if they were friends. "Ma'am!" cried Mup, horrified at how pale and dead and heavy the witch's hand was, and how Ma'am didn't seem to notice it at all. "Ma'am!" Ma'am did not look her way. Mup dashed the tears from her eyes and turned to a patch of moonlight that was lurking by the wall. "Make her answer me, Auntie! Tell her to get up!" "I can't," it whispered. "I'm not really here." "You are here!" exclaimed Mup, shocked that Auntie would stand there uselessly instead of fixing things. "I've seen you, Auntie. We talked. You told me to go to bed. You said you'd handle it. And now you're doing nothing." The patch of moonlight shivered inside. "I didn't think they'd be so strong here," it whispered. I'm not what I once was." Determined to get closer to Ma'am, Mup began to sidle her way around the edge of the room. The witches watched her. They wore just the faintest of smiles. There was just the faintest hint of amusement on their faces. As Mup came near, Badger thumped his tail and looked up at her without lifting his head from his paws. His fur warmed her skin. The fridge door was cold through the fabric of her pajamas. "I really am awake," she thought. "Why doesn't he bark at them?" she whispered. "Because," answered the moonlight, "they've convinced him they belong." "But they don't belong here, Auntie. You told me that. We're the ones who belong here. We are." "I used to think so." Auntie's voice was barely there, just a thistledown trickle at the back of Mup's mind. "But look at them. They're so strong. They shouldn't be so strong here. Oh, Pearl, I hadn't realized how dependent things were on my being here. I thought I'd set everything up so your mother would be safe from them, even when I was gone. How will she ever survive without me?" "Without you? Auntie, you said you'd sort the witches out if they came. If you knew you might not be here, then why didn't you answer any of my questions about them? Why didn't you show me how to fight them for myself?" The Ballad of Springhill by Ewan McCall and Peggy Seeger. In the town of Springhill, down in the dark of the Cumberland mine, there's blood on the coal, and the miners lie in the roads that never saw sun nor sky. In the town of Springhill, you don't sleep easy. Often the earth will tremble and roll. When the earth is restless, miners die. Bone and blood is the price of coal. In the town of Springhill, Nova Scotia, late in the year of 58, day still comes and sun still shines, but it's dark as the grave in the Cumberland mine. Down at the coalface, miners working, rattle of belt and cutter's blade, rumble of rock, and the walls close round. The living and the dead men 2 miles down. 12 men lay 2 miles from the pit shaft. 12 men lay in the dark, insane, long hot days in a miner's tomb. It was 3 feet high and 100 long. 3 days passed, and the lamps gave out, and Caleb rushed in. He up and said, "There's no more water, nor light, nor bread, so we'll live on songs and hope instead. Listen for the shouts of the barefaced miners. Listen through the rubble for a rescue team. 600 feet of coal and slag, hope imprisoned in a 3-foot seam." 8 days passed, and some were rescued, leaving the dead to die alone. Through all their lives they dug a grave, 2 miles of the earth for a marking stone. Puffs, or 7 Increasingly Eventful Years at a Certain School of Magic and Magic, by Matt Cox. Aww, but how does it end? How about I finish it? Helga was so stupid and boring, she couldn't come up with anything about what type of students Puffs would accept. So they just gave her all the dumb kids. The Puffs, the end. Worst slumber party ever. I never wanted to be a Puff. Every member of my family, Puffs, were like the Puff family. But I've always known that I was different. There's nothing even special about Puffs. Loyalty, being really nice. A bunch of lame, awful failures doomed to be a stupid personality-less nobodies that no one will ever care about. Ever. My mom was a Puff, but she was different. She became something bigger. She made the name Jones finally mean something other than a bunch of Puffs. I thought I knew I would be different too. But after all my hard work, what do you know? The hat puts me with the Puffs. I did everything. I mean, I even changed my accent just so I wouldn't sound like my Puff family. It's just not fair. Ha! Maybe. I guess. I suppose you two are kind of okay. Sorry to bring the mood down. Sorry to make things so serious. My mom's not coming here to rescue me, ever. I feel the need to hug. Don't tell anyone.